Hi, my name's Cheese, and welcome to another Fossil Sweeper Progress Update video. If you haven't heard of the project before, you can find an overview here, but the TLDR is, it's like Minesweeper, but you're digging up fossils. You need to build skeletons out of the stuff you find. For the past month or so, most of my attention has gone into Museum UI. I also did find some time to tune some dig phase size stuff. After spending one of my Friday dev streams just playing and testing the dig phase, I decided to act on something that I've been feeling for a while. The variation between dig site sizes doesn't really carry the right sense of stepping up into a different scale of puzzle. I increased the medium, large, and huge starting dimensions from 14, 20, and 35 to 16, 28, and 46. I'll probably tweak this more once I've revisited dig phase backgrounds, since that will play a role in performance concerns, but for now it feels nicer to me and makes choosing between dig sites feel slightly more meaningful. Tidying up work mentioned in the last video, I updated the Temp Museum to properly manage the new sub-HUDs, freeing any existing ones when showing a new one and preventing duplicates, that sort of thing. I also fixed some things in the music track selector that weren't scaling properly for resolution changes. I'd initially intended to implement a specimen plaque as an informational display that gets automatically added when a specimen is placed on a mount, containing information about where its fossils were found, when it was assembled, and other information specific to that specimen. Since the sub-HUDs were working out as a cleaner way of exposing information while still giving prominence to the visuals in the play space, I decided to use a similar approach and make a specimen info HUD which shows information on both the specimen as a whole and the individual fossil chunks that comprise it as well. I really like the way that this not only highlights the composite nature of assembled skeletons, but also surfaces the effort and context behind them as well. If the conceit of the project is that it's Minesweeper style gameplay with layers of meta progression around it, then maintaining the context of that core puzzle gameplay that everything else rests on top of feels important for keeping the game as a whole resonant. With that in place, I updated the camera behavior in the inspect mode to no longer capture the mouse cursor and offer a similar free camera movement to editing mode. The camera now snaps to being centered on the specimen when inspecting, and when clicking on a fossil chunk in the specimen info HUD, it'll jump to that chunk's location, making it easier to navigate a skeleton's components without taking away the freedom to move and explore at will. I finally got around to implementing some improved keyboard and gamepad controls for selecting nearby items. Drawing inspiration from an early 3D adventure game that's trendy to dislike, you know the one. I put nearby items into a list that the player can scroll through instead of just selecting the nearest thing. I'd also like to eventually have the avatar's head turned towards the item that has focus as well, but I'll explore that when I'm closer to finalizing avatar rigging and animation. I also added text-to-speech support for the specimen info HUD and item selection, and implemented the disable mouse input setting for a few aspects of the Temp Museum, so that a rogue mouse cursor can't change the selection unexpectedly for players who don't or can't use a mouse. That's something that I implemented in the original Bonesweeper prototype in response to feedback from blind players. The Temp Museum has lagged behind the rest of the game so far as TTS support goes, and I think that'll continue until I'm ready to move to a more final implementation. I think of this stuff as being UI, and much like the graphical user interface, I want to have all the functional requirements bedded down before I lock in the final layout and look and feel of things. That said, I'm very much looking forward to fleshing out this stuff in the future and making sure that the game is playable and accessible without visuals. A very big thank you to the supporters going by on screen at the moment. Their support has helped me eat while making this game, and I am so very appreciative. A huge thanks also to Screen Tasmania, who supported this project with a small grant. Anyway, that's about it for today. If you'd like to keep track of development or try the playable prototype, you can find some links in the description. And if you're super keen to check out what we talked about here today, I make early test builds available to my supporters on Patreon. Thanks for watching, and goodbye!